Welcome to the Literaryscapes podcast. I'm your host, Becky, and I'm excited to have you join me today. Do you enjoy escaping into a good book? What about exploring the world? Here on the Literaryscapes podcast, that's exactly what we do. Each episode, I introduce you to a new destination, a new book, a new author, maybe. So join me and see where we're escaping to today. Welcome to the episode. Thank you for joining us today. This is always so much fun to be able to talk to the author of the book that we've read and hear some of the inspiration behind kind of your stories, your writing process, anything that you like to share with us. A little bit about our book club. Every month we visit a new place, and this is our first time visiting Croatia. And so it was a lot of fun to read about it. And it felt like you had a good grasp on Croatia and what Croatia might be like. And so thank you for writing your stories that are set place in Croatia.
Yeah, I am in love with Croatia. So yeah, they're a pleasure to write. Which one did you pick for the?
We read the Dubrovnik Book Club.
Okay.
Now, am I correct in thinking that there was a book before that that had a same character?
It's a prequel, but it's 12 years before, and it wasn't ever intended to be
Okay.
a prequel. It's called The Collaborator's Daughter, and it's
Yeah.
basically the story of how Fran ends up in Dubrovnik.
Oh.
So it's a mature romance, if you like. When
Yeah.
she goes back to when she's born in Dubrovnik, and when she goes back there to try and find out what happened to her father during the war, and it's a bit of a dual timeline. So it's a very different sort of book. But
Interesting.
we see it was Vedran, really. He's in it as a student working in a bar, and I just knew he had a story.
Love it.
So
Okay.
So
Love it.
yeah, so they are connected, but they're no way do they have to be read
That,
together or anything. They're not
okay.
like in series. Um,
Right. And then the next one, is it also kind of connected or?
the the Santorini writing retreat, which my publisher wanted a book in Greece.
Hmm. Okay.
So the Santorini writing retreat, I kind of figured that Carmela would actually need to write that damn book she was talking about. Um, so she features in that. That continues as one of the three main characters. It
Right.
continues her story a little bit.
Nice. Okay. That's fun without I like books that are connected without having to read the stories before.
Yeah.
But if you do, it gives you a little more info about the character and that kind of thing. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So,
My publisher calls them Easter eggs when you mention that, because the one that's out in January, the library one, they actually go to the Dubrovnik books to the bookshop to collect the books for the library. So
oh,
there's like little
fun.
Easter eggs.
I love
Sort
that.
of thing.
Yeah.
And I
That's
like doing that because it's part of my world. Because I mean, you know, as a writer, or we live in two places at once.
yes.
We live in the real world, and a bit of our head is always away with the character.
Always. Yes. Yes. So,
So it's just bringing an extra bit of the world back.
yeah. Yeah, I like that. So, how did you become an author? Is it something that you always intended and always wanted, or?
It was the dream. It was never an act. It wasn't an active intention. I've always loved scribbling, and I actually found later. I was in business most of my career, and I actually found sometime afterwards I did one of these sort of mentoring programs. Where do you want to be, and what's your ultimate ambition in that? And I'd actually written in it, I want to write a bestseller.
Oh,
Um, so I guess I've always wanted to do it, but I
I love that.
didn't get down to finishing a whole book or a novel length book till I was well into my 40s, and
Nice.
it really wasn't publishable. Um, so I wrote about three or four of these things before one came out that I thought, you know what, this one's just about
not bad,
ready
yeah.
now. This one's kind of good enough.
Okay.
So that's where I started, and nobody did want to publish it. It did very well in a competition, but nobody wanted to publish it because it was ghostly. And this would have been in about 2011, something like that, when ghostly books weren't popular, particularly for the American market. It was a big no-no.
Okay.
You can't have ghostly books.
Curious.
But yeah, very curious. When you think now, I don't know about how the romantasy and all the rest of it, and
huge market.
There are witchy books,
the
ghostly
paranormal
books, all this sort of
stuff
thing.
is really popular. Yeah, that's so curious. Okay.
So I wrote that for a while. I then got a publisher, a small British publisher, for books under the name of Jane Cable, which is my own name.
Okay.
But all the time I'd had this little dream growing of writing something for HarperCollins.
Ooh.
And I'd met one of the editors at One More Chapter at various networking events and things. And I subbed to her, and she said, I don't want this, but I like your writing. Send something else. When you got something else, send it.
Okay.
So I did. It was a strange little book that was called The Fairy Tree, which I'd also indie published, which is now The Missing Pieces of Us, which is the only one not set in somewhere exotic. It's set near where I used to live in Hampshire. And she took it, but she kind of took it as like the one to get me in.
Okay.
But she didn't want the ghostly stuff. I was like, whoa, we don't do ghostly. So therefore I had to choose another author name.
Okay.
But about 6 months or so before this, I'd gone on holiday to Croatia, and that was my first trip to Croatia. And I'd met a tour guide. We did a boat trip up from Dubrovnik up to Split and a little bit beyond. And the guide on the boat told me the most incredible story about growing up in the tunnels in Mostar during the war as a small child, and about how, the good things and the bad things about it, how running out to get the parcels we were all dropping for them, the UN food parcels.
Oh, wow.
And how his mother disappeared for a week or two at one point. And given his dad was away in the army, and they'd had to smuggle his older brother out of the country in case he got called up.
Right.
The feelings of an 11-year-old child and things like that. And it was just a brilliant story. And I said to him, you've probably heard this before, but I want to write about what you've done. And he said, yeah. He said, just here's my email, keep in touch. And so then I had the opportunity with this publisher to write that book. And that was The Olive Grove, which was my first Croatian book.
Okay.
That looked back from an adult's point of view on the damage that sort of childhood would do. Now, I would point out that my friend Darko is the most resilient person you've ever come across. He's the most positive man. So it might be some of his story, but it's not his reactions to it.
Right.
But he worked with me a lot on that book. And I realized then it's so important to have someone on board who is of the country when you don't live there.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I can get so much in that's authentic Croatia, because he's at the end of a message. He'll video me. I mean, things like how they make the coffee with the zesva and all the rest of it, and things like that. He will set up a Zoom call, so he'll be making the coffee and showing how they do it. So he makes the
coffee and you see how they do it.
And he likes cooking. He loves cooking. He's a single dad and he loves cooking for his daughter. So he'll just set up the video and go, okay, I'm making clefici. So watch me make. So I get all this. And if it's something cultural, he'll find me a person to talk to or whatever. The one thing he actually failed in, which was part of the inspiration for the Dubrovnik Book Club, was getting anyone from the gay community in Dubrovnik to talk to me.
Interesting.
You've got to understand it's a very, very Catholic country still.
Right.
I mean, 80% practicing Catholic. And I've got another friend, Kreshimir, there, and I saw him when we were there when I was researching the book, and he talks for Croatia. Yeah, he talk. And I said to him, "What would it be like for a gay person in Dubrovnik now?" And he changed the subject.
How
And
curious.
I was very curious. And I said, because I thought I didn't really believe it was that difficult.
Right.
But I couldn't have written Luna's story anywhere else because in most
Yeah.
countries it's thankfully a lot easier, but those are
Hmm.
real battles she would have faced.
That's so
And
curious because, yeah, not living with that. I mean, in America, it's not that big of a deal if you're gay in most
no,
big cities or, I live in the South. And so in some of the small towns, it's probably not as easy to come out,
yeah,
maybe, because your community probably just wouldn't
yeah.
understand it. But yeah, huh.
So it's having that sort of into a country, which is, or I just think I'm so lucky to have somebody I can lean on
For
for these
sure.
books who
For
knows so much
sure.
about it.
So do you still write under Jane Cable, Ava Glyn, do you still write under Jane Cable or no?
I haven't had time to for
Yeah.
quite a while. The publishing schedule has been a little bit crazy. There was one year I did write a Jane Cable book and an Eva Glyn book
Ooh,
that was stretched me a little, shall we say.
I bet.
Then there was a situation where I'd written the book that's coming out in January, but I then gave my idea for the next book, which was meant to be the Santorini writing retreat, the writing retreat book. And they said, "Oh no, we want that first." So I had to write it in 5 months.
Oh my gosh.
It means things are fairly relaxed at the moment because the book that's coming out in January has been written for and
For
finished and
quite a
edited
while,
for
yeah.
over a year now. So that's
Oh
good.
my gosh. That's so
Um,
crazy.
it is. So I haven't had time to write as Jane Cable. I had another one planned because I've got a series called Cornish Echoes, which is dual timeline, slightly ghostly, Regency and present day, based around the great houses of Cornwall at that time. The What we
Okay.
sometimes call here the Poldark era. I don't know if you're familiar with the
No, I
Poldark
saw
novels.
that in one of your blog posts. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
Poldark was a very, very popular British set of novels written in the 50s and 60s by a Cornish author called Winston Graham. And it's a family saga that starts in the 1790s and carries on for about 30 years through a generation or two.
Okay.
And his portrayal of Cornwall in the time is absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's been made into TV series and all sorts over here. It's super big. So
Yeah.
that's why we kind of call it the Poldark era.
Sure.
But it's basically it's Regency.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
dual timeline, romantic mysteries. Um, One of them is a main character from Texas because I know Texas quite well because we've got friends there and we go there. So I thought it'd be fun to throw in a Texan character. But yeah, I do, and I have another one to go, ready to go, all planned out, sitting in my notebook.
Just
Oh, I just
waiting.
haven't had time to write it.
Yeah, just waiting. I get that.
Yeah,
Never enough
just
time to
waiting.
write all the ideas, is there?
No, no, there really isn't.
Yeah, I've got way
Especially
too many
with
ideas.
especially when you're writing per contract with dates and deadlines and
Right.
things. Anything you might want to do outside that has to obviously take a second.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's yeah. So I want to go back to your trip to Croatia.
Yeah,
Are you a big traveler? Were you a big traveler? And
yeah.
was Croatia just kind of the next stop, or was it like a bucket list place?
It was bucket list place, particularly Dubrovnik, because my parents went there in the 1980s, and my mum fell in love with Dubrovnik, and
Okay.
she always said to me, "You must go. It's the most beautiful city in the world."
Wow.
Um,
Huh.
So we found a little cruise. When also she died in 2015, and she left us a certain pot of money to use for travel. And she
Oh,
said to me, that must only be used to travel.
I
You've got
love
to
that.
travel. So
That's awesome.
that was one of the places that was on the list to go. So we found a cruise that just went up from Dubrovnik through all the little islands and up to Split and Trogir at the top, which was absolutely gorgeous. And that was my first visit, and that's how it came about. It was my mum saying, you must go.
What a beautiful legacy for her to give you.
Yeah,
That's such a
yeah,
lovely way of leaving an inheritance.
yeah, it really was. And we did some wonderful things with the money. We did a small group tour of a lot of the national parks in the western side of the States.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we went to Vietnam and Cambodia, which was a total
Wow.
eye opener. We cruised from right to the middle of Europe, um, from Budapest all the way up to Amsterdam. So we did some really great things
That's really
with
cool.
the,
Yeah.
with the travel fund. Then COVID hit. We stayed
Ooh.
at home
And
like everyone
so
else.
is that when the idea for the Croatia book came during COVID?
Yeah, yeah. I'd had it in my mind that I wanted to use Darko's story, but I
Okay.
hadn't worked out up till then how to make it possibly commercial, because I knew I'm not a writer of literary fiction.
Right.
And that
Right.
story, if I'd written it in a very heavy way, it would have had to have been serious literary fiction. And I wanted to bring that story to as wide an audience as possible. So in the end, I decided to put it in with a story of a woman in her 40s finding a new life in Croatia. If you like the classic holiday read,
Yeah.
someone from Britain or America or Australia goes to this country and they're going to work for the summer and then go back, because they've messed up their life at home and their fresh start story. So I pulled it in with that. Only when
Okay.
Antonia turns up on the island of Korčula, she finds her new boss, who's a lot younger than her, very charming, and then realizes he's actually very damaged. And so it's how their friendship comes together. I'm fascinated by friendship more so than romance, really. It's how
Yeah.
their friendship comes together and how they sort of help each other.
That's really,
Because a lot of people have
yeah.
said to me, oh, I thought it was going to be Eat, Pray, Love with the age difference. I'm like, no, not that book at all.
Ooh. That's really funny. Carmela and Raphael,
Yeah.
they were a really curious, when you were talking about exploring friendships,
Mm.
that's who popped in my mind because their relationship was fascinating to me because it wasn't romantic at all. And I don't know if it's going to go that way or not in the next, in her next book, but they their relationship was a healing one. And I just found that fascinating as, in all the different types of relationships we tend to write, it's usually not one like that, and I liked that.
Yeah. I love writing it. At first, I wasn't entirely sure how Raphael would
Yeah.
turn out. I have met a number of veterans, people
Hmm.
who've been Dubrovnik defenders, and everybody has a
Oh,
different
wow.
story and everybody has a different reaction, different struggles afterwards.
Right.
Um, I wanted to make Raphael's struggles uniquely his own. Um, and he grew. He
Hmm.
grew from this slightly bombastic, difficult neighbour into the person that, eventually helps her to, sets her on the path to
Yeah.
healing. And of course, I just like the way he changed and the way he had it in him all the time, because somewhere buried under
Yeah.
that person who was, I mean, his experiences in the war were the experiences of a guy called Matteo, who's helped me with a
Wow.
lot, having to take a gun off his best friend's father because that was the only gun,
Wow.
and having his, and injuries and things like that.
Yeah.
It's always to me a salutary experience that it's within our lifetime, and people have our sort of age have been through that sort of war, that sort of trauma in Europe, in a country where we thought,
Yeah.
you know, Yugoslavia, people have been going on holiday there. It's, you know, it was never as cut off as a lot of other communist countries. So it felt so familiar when it happened. And the fact that these people, you know, lived through it so
Well, people,
recently.
yeah, people of our generation,
Yeah.
yeah, that's when we read another book set in Croatia, and to show my ignorance of Croatia, it was talking about the war, and my brain's going back to the 40s. And I'm like, how is that possible that, this person experienced anything in the 40s? And I had to go look it up and see when was a war in Croatia. And that just surprised me how much I didn't know.
Yeah. I remember some of it. I remember towards the end of it, and I particularly remember the end and the bombing of Sarajevo by the British and American, the NATO forces that ended the war because it
Okay.
drove the Serbs back and they had to sue for peace. I can remember that. And that was in September 95. And the reason, or end of August 95, and the reason I really remember it is because the week before I got married, and I'm
Oh,
bombing around in
wow.
the car, collecting cakes, collecting dresses, doing all this really great, lovely stuff. And this is the backdrop on the radio, people
Wow.
being killed, this. So it really left a mark on me. But I don't remember the siege of Dubrovnik in 91. At the time, I was starting a new
Yeah.
job, a new career. I just wasn't listening to the
Because
news.
it ended in 95, right?
Yeah, it did. It ended in
So, I mean,
95.
it
That
had
was the
been
very
going
end of it.
on for 4 years.
Yeah, it
And
began in the summer of 91 when they
yeah,
sort of, there was a bit of nudging and nagging going on the border between vote. Croatia voted for independence in June 91. And there was attrition along the border with the Serbs. But then former Yugoslav army weighed in on the side of Serbia. And everybody thought Croatia wouldn't go to war because they couldn't, because they had no army, they had
right.
nothing. They were a new country. So the Serbs then came up from the south and put Dubrovnik under siege because they didn't have any seaport. And
Wow.
they thought if they could capture Dubrovnik, they could have a route to the sea. But they didn't capture Dubrovnik. And it was quite as dramatic as the book suggests in terms
Yeah.
of a very few men
Yeah. Holding the
holding
line.
holding holding the line. It really was a miracle how it ever happened. But in the background at the same time, they were kind of suing for, there were negotiations going on, and I think
Okay.
Serbia probably realized because the eyes of the world were on Dubrovnik, perhaps they couldn't quite get away with it.
Right. It's
So
yeah. Yeah. I'm wondering how much of like what Ukraine's going through is similar. And
yeah, it did make me think when Ukraine started, it was horribly familiar that the whole thing, the attrition, the,
yeah,
a
the
country
bigger
that we,
bully coming
yeah,
in.
a country
Yeah.
that we all know and we know about, and we've seen beautiful pictures of Kiev and places, and
Yeah.
so yeah. But that war does fascinate me because it is so recent, and because I can talk to people who were involved in it, and
Right.
people who were children growing up in it, and it just makes it feel so real and accessible. You walk
Hmm.
around Dubrovnik, and once you get your eye and you see the bullet holes,
Wow. That's
you really do,
crazy.
which is
Yeah.
a really salutary experience.
That's really interesting. And I think I love that authors can bring the knowledge of this to the world through an escape,
Yeah,
through this unique device that will give them a good read, a fun escape, and impart you with a little wisdom, little history.
yeah. I think in Europe we heard far much more about it, and I know Norway took in a lot of refugees from that war because
Wow.
actually, I think I mentioned briefly that my friend Darko's brother was spirited out of Bosnia,
Right.
because his father said, this is not a war. They're going to make you fight. You're 16. They're going to make you fight. There's no Geneva Convention in this war. So they spent every last penny they had, smuggled him out. And he ended up in Norway, where he still
Wow.
lives.
How
He
curious.
ended up there as a refugee. So Norway had played a really big part in helping those people.
Yeah, it's interesting because like here, we don't hear about things unless we're involved typically, or unless
Mhm.
they're, world shattering type of thing. So that's interesting. And there's a lot going on. I get that. But at the same time, it's also disturbing how much we don't know. And
But if you think about it, you have a huge country.
mhm.
And I didn't appreciate it until I'd been driving across California for 2 days. And
And
as
you're
our
still
tour
in
guide said,
California. Yeah.
you're not even doing the long bit. You're going straight across the
Oh,
short bit.
geez.
I just didn't appreciate it. Sounds stupid. I didn't appreciate the scale. And
Well,
our
how
friends who
could you?
live near
Because
Houston, they're like, yeah, if we go north, we're driving for a day before we get out of Texas.
yeah, that's in Florida, we're the same way. From where I live, it's 4 hours to the next state. But I'm top central. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
it's so hard when we're in this tiny little country to
appreciate that.
get
Yeah.
your head around that.
Hmm.
But then when you think of the scale of Europe, and I think that's why people can be a bit unkind and say America's insular. I don't think so. I think it's because you are so big with so many people and so much happening at home. And what's more relevant to you is what's happening to the north and the south,
Right.
not on your, in your borders. It's not what's happening
Right.
in Europe.
I mean, yeah, I
That's
mean,
got
I
to
feel
take
like
second place.
our country is almost like a whole bunch of little countries, kind of like Europe, that kind of a thing. That's how it feels most of the time is, we all kind of have our own stuff going on, and that's what we hear about because we're this group of little countries together. So yeah, yeah.
I like that idea of America actually, because parts of it's just so different from one end to the other from what
Well,
little
yeah, and
I've
every
seen.
state has its own unique stuff, just like in Europe. So yeah, it's so interesting. And when I feel bad for people who don't travel because there's so many within the United States, there's a whole bunch, but within the world, there's so much.
Yeah.
And it's when you think like there's people in Florida, in the area that I live that have never been out of Florida. And if you think this is it, it's like, oh my gosh, how can you? There's so much more out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I live in Cornwall now, which is in the far southwest of England.
Okay.
And you do sometimes come across people who have not been out of Cornwall,
Yeah. Yeah.
or not very often. It's not so prevalent now, but certainly 40, 50 years ago, there were a lot of people in the UK who'd never been out of their county,
Wow.
you know.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
But
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 yeah.
it's money and it's opportunity and it's the will to do it,
Right.
I
I
think.
mean,
But
I think there's kind of a beauty in being content exactly where you are. I've
yeah,
never had that, but wow, okay. Yeah. It's fun.
have you done books set in Norway? Yeah.
I feel like we may have done one, but boy, because we've been looking for them, and it's hard to find. We can only do so many like war stories at once because they
Yeah.
tend to be pretty heavy. And a
Yeah.
lot of the ones set in Norway tend to be war stories.
Yeah, the one I was thinking of is by Anna Norman. The Silent Resistance is a war one, and that is heavy. It's
Maybe
beautiful,
we'll,
but it's heavy.
and I can take it in doses, but I have to balance it. So
I think that's the wonder of reading, though, and you can balance it, and you can
hmm.
do different. I don't know. You can try different books for different moods, and balance
Right.
it. Go from one to the other. Go from you know. Obviously, I read a lot of destination type fiction because I love it, but it's
Same,
really
yeah.
nice also to read different things heavier books, lighter books. It's just
Right.
that joy, isn't it,
It
of
is.
a
And
book?
I think because of our book club, I have read so many books that I probably never would have read. And we read some lighter books. We'll throw some romances in there, sometimes. But we've read, some much heavier books and some just super interesting characters that are diverse, from my life. And it's really interesting. And I, like you said, I like the fact that we can experience so much life through books.
Mm.
I think that's a
No,
beautiful
it's
thing.
wonderful.
Yeah. And books that celebrate books are one of my favorite.
Yeah, it's quite a big thing. I keep thinking this thing is going to end. This books about books
Celebrate
is going
books,
to
yeah.
end, but they don't.
They
They keep
don't.
going.
They
That's
do.
why I can get away with a library one coming out in January.
Right. Have you read
But it is.
Madeline Martin?
No, I haven't.
Okay, she's an American author, and I she writes historical fiction. She writes some Regency romance stuff, but she writes some historical fiction also, and it's set mostly, I think, World War II Europe stuff.
Hmm.
And it's all celebrating books and celebrating these women who you might not ever have heard of their stories, type of thing. And they're just always so fascinating. And, like the way that she, yeah, anybody who writes history, the way that you figure out, and I guess not even history, but the way you figure out a story, you hear this piece, like, you heard the tour guide story, and it's like, I need to know more about this. And it
Yeah,
leads you down a rabbit hole that becomes a story.
yeah, e- exactly that. I mean, the World War II story that drew Fran to Croatia, it was pure curiosity on my part. I had a character in the Olive Grove, the first book, down there, staying with a friend in near Dubrovnik, and he's looking out over the sea, and there's an island, and I thought, well, he's a local. He'll know what the island name is. So I just put on a map and thought, right, well, okay. So I Googled Daxa, and there was this whole story of the executions that have been carried out there at the end of the war,
Oh my
and
gosh.
locals. It's been for sale for decades, but the locals won't go there, won't
Wow.
go on it because it's haunted and
Sure.
all the rest of it. And
Sure.
they did a proper excavation, and they're now properly buried the men who were executed there.
They probably need
But
to
this
sage the
whole
whole
story,
island.
this and you pull that bit of string, and as you say, you disappear down that lovely rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a story!
What a story.
What
Yeah.
a tragic story.
Hmm.
So
It's good to hear stories, though, good and bad stories. I mean, I always enjoy the uplifting, motivational type stories, but there's some important ones that we need to not forget, I think,
yeah.
not let
I
get
think
buried.
that's kind of the joy I like of writing a dual timeline, because you
Yeah,
can take the different timelines in different directions. You can have the war history, the serious history, the desperately sad story in one, but you can make
you
the
can,
other one suitably uplifting to
yeah, you
balance
can
it. And
balance it
I do
out.
like
Yeah.
doing I do
Is
like that very
That's what
much,
your
because there are
Jane
some
Cable
stories you
books are,
can't.
right?
Yeah, and the two of the Eva Glyn ones. The
Okay.
Collaborator's Daughter is what I call dual timeline light. It's about 80% contemporary, because
Okay.
I could not get the research documents to go any deeper into the wartime story. It all
Okay.
happens over a period of 6 months. I could get an okay 6 weeks. I can get an okay amount on,
Right.
but it didn't make a whole. It started off as a prologue written by Fran's father, but he wouldn't shut up.
I Before I started writing books, I always thought it was fascinating and weird that characters seem to have a say in a story. It makes no sense to someone who doesn't write. And even as a writer, I still think it is ridiculous, but it's the way it is.
You just do it. Does everyone in the group write as well as read? No. No, it is. So it's that slight craziness of authors going, yeah, well, they do. They carry it. And I get it. Sounds weird. I've went to lunch with some other authors locally, and they say, isn't it great? We're the only people who can talk to people who only live in our head, and nobody thinks we're entirely mad crazy.
Not entirely mad. Yeah.
Not entirely.
That's so funny. Are you a plotter or a pantser, as they say?
I'm a natural pantser, but writing under contract,
Yeah,
I've had to learn to adapt. So
sure,
I have to
sure.
submit very detailed outlines now
Okay.
before the book's accepted. But my editors does understand that characters will do different things, that things will happen differently,
Hmm.
and that it won't be quite the same as the outline. It won't be
Yeah,
exactly as I've set it out, because other things will crop up.
sure.
I mean,
So, what's the craziest pivot that a character has made you do in a story?
I'm just trying to think. Very often they want to finish it a different way. They want their story to end differently, and they'll take conversations in directions you never thought they would when you're writing dialogue. Really? Did you really mean that? I think one is in one book. I have a character who ex-boyfriend turns up. He wasn't even planned in the book, and he turns up and tries to seduce her because when they were teenagers he was never successful, and it propped up the whole middle of a book.
Oh my gosh.
And I'd never expected that to happen. I didn't even know who this guy was.
And
And
here he
suddenly
is.
Giorgio, who'd been the captain of the football team, rocks up in the middle of her life again.
That's funny.
And it's what? Isn't going to happen.
That's
So
so funny.
other times with the Dubrovnik Book Club, it wasn't so much a character. It was when I saw the cover. I saw the first cover and it was fine. It was great. And then my editor sent another version. She said, "Hope you don't mind. I put a cat in it."
Oh, and
Where is
so
it?
the little miss
There's a
is
little cat on the corner. So of course, I then thought, well, a cat on the cover if there's no cat in them. So I had to go back and write the cat in. And
I like
actually,
that.
I think the cat made a difference. I
The
like
cat
that. I
was a
like that.
good, yeah, the cat was a good character and didn't
Yeah,
steal
and
the show, but lended some
yeah,
good
and
humanness
Dubrovnik
to the
is
story.
full of stray cats who are really well looked after. I mean, just down from where the I was about to say the bookshop is, where I imagine the bookshop to be is the Orthodox Church, which I think I mentioned, with all the wonderful cats outside. There'd
Yeah.
be food, and even tourists now. It's quite a thing. People go with bags of cat treats to Dubrovnik
Oh, wow. That's
out of their
crazy.
holiday, feeding the cats. And you've never
There's
seen
worse
such well
things
looked
to do,
after, well
right?
fed stray cats.
What a
Like
funny
people
thing.
turning up on their Instagram feeds. I've got my dreamies. I'm going to find the cat. The moment I'm writing a book set on a Greek island and it's in the winter, I'm trying to work out where they could have got the ferry off the island to. It's just been a nightmare
It's
because I
so
like,
interesting when you have to kind of stick within reality,
mm,
and
I like I like reality because I figure you're taking readers on such flights of fancy.
right.
You don't want a distraction because if somebody has been there and knows you can't do it, they're just going to go,
It'll
It's
take
not
them out
right.
of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
And you
want
don't want
things
that. Yeah. Yeah.
that
That's
again. I remember reading a World War II book, and it had a vehicle in it that wouldn't have been around in World War II, and I was like, oh. And you think, what else is
and then
wrong?
you start Googling when the vehicle and, when it came about and whatever, and it takes you completely out of it. And
Yeah, exactly.
so you've got books in Greece, you've got books in Croatia, you've got books in the UK.
Yeah.
Anywhere else right now?
Um, I have a passion project on the side at the moment, which isn't contracted, and I'm writing as a complete pantser, no plan, no nothing,
Lovely.
set in France in the late 1940s, at the end of the war and just afterwards,
Okay.
because we travel a lot to a French region called Burgundy.
Okay.
Um, and it has stories, it has people, it has beautiful scenery. And I found a plaque on the wall, and there's about the liberation of that part of France, which actually came from the south. It was nothing to do with D-Day.
Oh,
It was an American and British force that was joined by the French resistance as it moved north, quite a small one, that liberated. I thought, this is never written about.
I love that.
And there's a chateau in the town, and I thought, what if the guy leading the soldiers was actually liberating his own chateau in his own village? And what if it all went horribly wrong? So I am writing in France at the moment, but how and if and when that will ever see the light of day, I don't know. But I've written about 30,000 words. I don't know how to put it down for the contracted book. We're
Right,
back in
right.
France for a month, February, March time. So the first
Nice.
quarter of next year, I'm going to go back to it.
That'll be fun. I think there needs to be a story about writing that's called What If?
Yeah,
Because I feel like
it
that's
is,
how
isn't it?
stories start. You see something and you're like, what if? And that's just starts this whole process of going down rabbit holes and
Yeah,
writing
exactly
stories.
that. Exactly that.
That's so funny. So, what are you working on? Oh, you're working on the France story. What else are you working on?
Well, at the moment, I'm working on a book that doesn't really have a title. It's got the working title of the Kefalonia book journey, because again, it's got books in
Of
it.
course.
It's set in a village. It's set in a village called Fiscado in Kefalonia, which is, I think, is beautiful. Um, and it's about somebody not who loses her marriage or gets divorced or anything. She loses the job she loves. She's been wedded to the job, and that's her
That's her
starting place.
grief.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and it, of
Penny.
course, it takes her a while to realize she has to grieve for the
Right.
job as much as she would have if it had been a bereavement of a person.
Right.
And
Right.
I've always wanted to write a book about a tourist place off season, what you don't see, what really goes on in the villages when nobody else
When
is there,
nobody's there.
when there's only a
Yeah.
couple of hundred people living there, when normally in the summer there's thousands of tourists and it's all shut down. I'm having a lot of fun with Greek Christmas at the moment.
Oh,
I'm
fun.
writing Christmas.
Nice.
I fell in love with Greece in my 20s, but I never thought I'd be writing books set there. But we're going to Athens for New Year, so that's our next trip.
Oh,
So
that'll be
I'm very
fun.
excited about that.
Nice.
Yes.
So, any dream location that you haven't been to yet that you'd like to go to?
The holiday there that I really want to do more than anything is Sri Lanka. Never
Interesting.
been to Sri Lanka. I've always wanted to. We were booked to go in 2003, but there was the tsunami. So we couldn't travel. There was no international travel. And since then, we've never really got around to it.
Right.
So that's very high on the bucket list.
Interesting. Okay.
As is New Zealand, but New Zealand seems a heck of a long way. So we're umming and ahhing about that.
I can
Because if we
understand
go,
that.
we'll want to go. We'll want to go from for about 6 weeks.
Hmm.
I have 13 minutes apparently on my battery, and I'm really sorry. I can't plug in because of where I am. We have house guests.
Oh,
So I'm
that's
sitting
right.
in the only corner of my bedroom that's not covered in rubbish. And it's because everything's been thrown in here.
No problem.
So
No problem. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry about that.
Yeah, no, this has been a really fun
Because I'm having such a
conversation.
ball, I could talk to you all night.
I know. Well, tell your guests thank you for sharing you with us. We greatly appreciate it. And it has been so much fun talking to you. And yeah, I
No,
want
it's
to
been
go.
great. And if anyone else has any questions or anything, or thinks of anything afterwards, just get in touch through Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, through Becky on
Yeah, I've
Instagram, because
got
as Becky
her
knows,
email.
I do like interacting.
Yes, yes,
Um,
it's awesome. So thank
yeah.
you. And
No, well, thank you all for choosing the book as
yeah,
well.
it was a
I
fun read, and
appreciate I haven't spoken very much about it, but
that's, I always enjoy hearing all the other stories as well. So I appreciate you sharing them with us. So have a
thank
great
you so
rest of
much,
your evening,
ladies.
Kay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me today on the Literaryscapes podcast. If you enjoy reading your way around the world like I do, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join me in the Literaryscapes Book Club. Each month, I offer up a new destination, 2 books that we'll read together, and then the author will join us of one of the books. So if that is something that sounds exciting to you and you'd like to be in a community that reads together, then check out the show notes. I'll have a link in there for the Literaryscapes Book Club. Until I see you again, have a great week, and I will talk to you again soon. Happy reading.